Coding challenge review. Beginners first. What we got today? First of all, has anyone noticed this red button on top? Yeah. What that means? What the? So that essentially removes all the data on the challenge. Yeah, that applies to both challenges and training. You remember, I think Walter complained, or someone complained on Friday on Retro. Sometimes you join by accident, and then yeah. So now, if you're in the middle of a challenge, if you press that button and you confirm, it's like if you never participated. Same for training. If you complete a training and by accident you join, or not by accident, maybe you want to repeat one question on the training, but you don't want to submit it. Yeah. So you leave it, and that's it. You've never been there. Yeah. Cool. So again, I added that yesterday at midnight. I was super sleepy, so if there is any bug, let me know. So is string. We have a function is a string, and that function receives data. Could be a string, could be a number, could be a boolean, could be whatever. And we want to see if the data provided is a string. Ooh. How do we know if the value is a string or not? Type of value, what? Equal. Another one? No. What? No. Like that? Double. Yeah. 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 I prefer single. Except if we talk about the whiskey, right? So return type of value. Yeah. Semicolon. Correct. Oh, good. Fantastic. Fantastic. So that should work, right? Yeah. All good. All good. No elegance issues. Remember, pay attention to that. Cool. That was easy. That was very easy, guys. What you did? The same thing. Same thing again. X. Yeah. Walter. Thing. Not necessarily against that, right? We don't know what's that. Lucia call it name.
I don't know why.
I like X, which is what the majority of you did, because X, you know, right? If it's a number, string, yeah, string, and pretty much everyone has done the same thing, which is expected. Any question, guys? No, not right. So question number 2, is it a boolean? Same thing, yeah, same pattern. We want to check if the value we pass is a boolean or not. How do we do that? Let's call it X because I like it, what you did. Return. Yeah. With capital or with lower? Lower, correct. And semicolon, right? Cool. The result is correct. So, question number 3. Oh, find sexy artists. Let me review what you did before. Question number 2. Everyone has done the same. Type of. Yeah, that was an easy one, right? I mean, it looks like it was an easy challenge. Find sexy artists. This is slightly more complicated, just slightly. So we want to see who is the sexy artist. We have what type of data are we receiving? Object, wrong. Array, yeah? We have an array of few elements, 3 elements. So we want to see some of them. Well, in reality, one of them, we know one of them is sexy. So we want to display the name. Which method in JavaScript help us to identify something in a list? Find. Correct. we have the argument name, which helps a bit. Yeah. So return artist. What else? Dot find. We have an individual artist. So then artist. What else? Dot is sexy equals no equals. Say it again. Delete.
Yeah.
Delete what?
Sorry. Delete the
Delete the equals. Okay. Like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's leave it there. Let's leave it there. I like the approach. Let's see what happens. Will this work? Why not? Return, correct. Yeah, remember. Let's do the long version. Actually, let's do the longest version possible. I'm going to pass a classic function here. Yeah. That's the classic approach. We have what? The arrow, yes, that's correct. Thank you, Walter. Yeah, will it work? Yes? So, Walter, okay. Anyone complains? Let me zoom out so you can... You need to return the name. The name. At the end. At the end what? Here. Yeah. Yeah. Dot name. We can either do that or we can correct. As Lucia is proposing, we can do let sexy artist equal, yeah? And then return what? Dot name. To me, this feels a bit more readable, yeah? First you save the variable and then you return the property you want. This has another advantage. Remember the breakpoints last week? If we do that, we can add a breakpoint on line number 5 and evaluate if the content of sexy artist is correct or not. If we do everything in one go, it's a bit more complicated. What do you think, guys? Will this work?
Yes.
Fair enough. Let's try. It does work. It's perfect. Yeah. And now I realize I don't like this red color because you know when the time is going down, it becomes red as well. So I'm getting the feeling that I'm running out of time continuously, right? UX, the sort of things we need to work with. Cool. So this is a classic callback function, and now let's simplify that to see how much JavaScript has evolved on the last 6-7 years. So we can replace a classic function with an arrow function. Do you remember? Towards the end of the bootcamp, when talking about lexical this and scoping, we'll see the differences. But for now, we can assume they are equivalent. If they are equivalent, we can simply do that. Yeah? Do we need these parentheses here surrounding the argument? Why not? Correct, because we have only one. Yeah? So we can do that as well. Is there a way to remove the return statement? How? One line like that. I don't want to put it in one line. I want to leave it there for readability purposes. Remove the curly brace. That's correct. If we remove the curly brace, whatever comes after the arrow will be immediately returned, right? So two options. Either you put it in one line, but if you think, I think that's still acceptable, but if you want to keep it in multiple lines, even though that's not strictly necessary, I strongly recommend you to put parentheses. The parentheses never hurt. And here, at least, we say artist, return what? Be careful. I open parentheses, so you are telling what goes inside. I find it a bit more readable. Do you think that will work, yes or no? Yes? Okay. Walter? Yes. Everyone agrees with Walter? Yeah? All good? Yes? Are you sure? You know, if I'm asking so many times, it's a way to tell you are wrong, right? Are you sure? We remove the curly brackets, just parentheses. Okay, let's have a look. Let's run it. This is a classic issue when you start dealing with immediately return statements. Let's see what happens. If we evaluate it, it fails.
In React, maybe, when there is return, if you want to write in different line, you can use the parentheses.
Look, no, it's not because of the parentheses. Look at the error. Unexpected token semicolon. This is something very important. When you return something immediately, either using parentheses or not at all, like that, it's forbidden to use a semicolon. The semicolon works when you create lines of code, let's say. But this is not actually a line of code. This is just something that you're immediately returning. Yeah? You cannot add multiple lines here. That's not allowed. Yeah? Because of that, simply remove it. Yeah? If it helps, if you put everything in one line, yeah? Now it may look a bit more strange keeping the semicolon. Yeah? So just remember, after the arrow function, if you don't put curly brackets, then you cannot use semicolons, because whatever goes next will be immediately returned. So let's see if that works. It does work. Yeah? It does work. And now, someone was suggesting at the beginning that we don't even need that equal true. Why is that? Correct. Because it's sexy, it's truthy. If it's truthy, yeah, truthy. Correct. So that's the simplest way to do that. So now if we evaluate it, it still works. And back to the inline return. Remember, return dot name at the end. Yes. You can even move it. Remember, every time you have a dot, generally speaking, it's a good idea for readability purposes to move it to a new line. You see, I find this quite readable actually. Return artist, find the sexy one, and then return the name. Does it make sense? Yes. Cool. So let's see if it works. It does work. Any question? No? Cool. So what you did here, let's see different approaches. You see, Helder is creating a variable. It's super sexy. Be careful here, eh? She's not just trying to find the sexy, the super sexy. He made it up, right? I don't know why super. No one is talking about super sexy artists. So. For Pelin, this art is sexy. It's the same pattern, right? She's explicitly checking if it's equals to true. Wondering whether she got a penalty on the line length, but clearly Helder didn't. For Walter probably got elegance issues here, right? Remember the spaces surrounding the arrow function. These parentheses are not necessary neither, as you already know. Cool. Gawa, all good. Equal, true, not necessary though. For Sule, Sule, why are you using backticks? They are not, I mean, it's okay, right? But you see, they are not necessary at all. Let's compare with Vivian, for instance, yeah? You are making it just more complicated.
I was just going back to the first steps.
Yep. So the backticks make sense when you are mixing variables and literals or multiple variables. But if you just want to return one variable, it's completely unnecessary.
Does it give elegance issue?
Good question. No, I don't think so. No. However, that does give elegance issue to Vivian. Yeah? Equal. Wrong. Never do that. For Wendy, all in one line. This is actually our last solution. Very short. Lucia is creating a variable and then returning the name. Bilius, all good. Same for Carl. Same for Bucket. And for Gamil, yeah, the same thing. Just know that, you know, Gamil's solution, as similar to others, is a bit long, yeah? So you don't need Gamil the equal true. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And also, did Gamil got any other penalty here? Semicolon, Gamil, here. Yeah? Oh, you see, that's why to me, it's a bit weird to get penalties on the elegance, because you get the warning, line number 3, please add a semicolon, right? It's trivial, it takes 1 second. Cool. Yeah. Cool, that was question number 3, I believe. So let's have a look to the 4th one. What we got here? Oh, get H message. So we have a couple of things. We have a string and in number, and we just have to concatenate them. Yeah, that's fairly simple actually. That's fairly simple. So return with a classic way. How do we do that? No, without backticks. Username plus H. No. Like that? After, yeah, got it. After as well. Yeah. Semicolon. Yeah. Yes, correct. That's the classic way to do that. And it does work. Will it work with double quotes? It will work with double quotes as well, right? But now, let's talk about backticks. How we do that? Backticks? Yeah. How do we do with backticks? With this weird, yes, backticks. Backticks and then what? Dollar. Cool. Why we use dollar and not euro or yen or any other? Yeah, that was Walter, right?
That's a good reason.
Yes. Why don't we use?
Now no one forget that.
Can they used to use instead of bar?
The what?
Can they used to always use dollar instead of bar?
Dollar instead of bar.
Bar,
So we use dollar because the majority of the software comes from the US, right? In here, at Codery, we try to use as much European software and infrastructure as possible, but definitely coding comes from America. It's been like that from the beginning, yeah? That's why we use dollar. Well, dollar, and then what? Curly brackets, username, close curly bracket, space, is, space, dollar, curly brackets, H. It's very simple, right? But hopefully you can see, or you agree with me, that this is already slightly more readable than the pluses. It's more natural to read. Yeah, that's a new thing in ES6 2015. So, yeah, of course it works. No elegance issues. All good so far. So, what you did here? Curly brackets, curly brackets, curly brackets, curly brackets, all around. It's good, right? It's really good. That, except Bucket, still using the classic. Yeah, still valid, don't get me wrong. But as far as possible, try to migrate to the curly brackets approach. It's slightly more readable. Yeah, all good so far. Last question. We're talking about, get formatted time. Start talking about dates. Dates are a bit complicated, and the main reason is everyone hates dates. And when we start talking about time zones, it's super complicated. I had a meeting with someone in India, in Delhi, last week, and they got, timing was GMT plus 5:45. So you were 5 hours and 45 minutes ahead. So it was like what? It was maybe 9 a.m. here, and it was 13:45 there. It's mind-blowing. Cool. Get formatted time. So the reason why dates are so complicated is because, generally speaking, unless we're working on any particular sort of software, we don't use them that often, right? We don't use them every day. So once we need to use them, how was that? Actually, I'll tell you something. I don't remember how to do that. New date. So new date receives a date, and then yeah, we have to format the time. Yeah. Please note the date token should be normalized to this format, blah, 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 blah. Right, and what we got on the right-hand side? So we got some help in place. Normalize the token. I can think about two ways to solve the problem. Either using a split, stuff like that, or because we got a date, we can do get minutes, get hours, and get seconds, right? If I will have received a string, I may have been tempted to parse the string using a split, a space, all these sort of things. But because we got a date, let's use get hours, get minutes, and get seconds. Again, I don't remember the syntax on top of my head, so I may have to Google and to lose some points on the elegance, no, on the focus, right? So we got a date. So then let's try to do let hours equals date dot get hours, I believe. Yeah. And then let minutes equals date dot get. This is again on top of my head. The syntax may not be correct. And then let seconds equals date dot get seconds. And then we want to return. Yeah, correct. Because we have to not essentially, what's the point here? Look, minutes 0, but we want to display 0, 0, right? We want to have a user-friendly format. So I'm going to invoke get to normalize the token. Look at what I'm doing here, yeah? You see? Normalize the token, so normalize the hours, normalize the minutes, and eventually normalize the seconds. So then we can return using curly, using backticks, hours, colon, minutes, colon, oops, seconds, something like that. What do you think? I like it. I find this quite readable. So let's see if it works. It's correct. Yeah, so my assumptions were right. Remember to have a look to how to manipulate dates. I'm sure you got some links, not here, but somewhere. I'm sure you got some links about the date getter and setter, right? How to get hours, how to set hours, how to get the day of the month, all the sort of things. If you've been doing some intermediate training, yeah, it's the same thing, but a bit spicy, yeah, a bit more complicated. Cool. So that was the last question. Let me check what you did, if everyone followed the same approach or not. So for Helder, so the first part is this. No, it's actually literally the same. Sorry, it's literally the same. Pelin, skip it. I hope you learn how to do that. Walter, all good. Then Gawa, the same thing. It's good, right? Everyone follow very similar approach. That's good. Vivian, the same thing. Wendy, the same thing. Lucia, why my hours, my min, and my seconds?
I don't know. Because I thought that hours, mins, and seconds are, reserved words or something. Then I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Wendy, all good. Vivian, the same thing. Book it. Still using the classic way of concatenating strings and variables, but all good apart from that. Carl, yeah, it's good, right? Everyone. managed to solve it. Yeah, good, good, good. Yep. Cool, fantastic. Well done, guys. Very proud of you again. So that was it regarding the beginner. Is there any question regarding any of the tests? No?
I know how to improve, but go a level up.
Cool.
I'll make a clock.
A clock?
Do you have like scaffolding?
Yeah.
Now just add the times.
Yeah? Yeah, that was just beginner, so that was the easiest. Cool. Again, look at the scores, right? Really good. Really, really, really good. Well done, guys. So let's have a look to intermediate. How time left we have? We got like 30 minutes, right? 31 minutes. Cool. Let's try to do at least 2 or 3 questions here. Question number 1. Create an array utils component. I like this question because it's the first time that instead of creating one function, we had to create not 2, not 3, but 4, yeah? So here we learn how to manipulate arrays. Append means add an element at the end of the array. Prepend means add the element at the beginning of the array. Delete first, self-explanatory, self as delete last. So, without paying too much attention to details, how many arguments do we receive on append? 2. Tell me the name of the arguments. Array and item, element. Yeah, all good. Cool. So then, how do we add an element at the end of the array? Push, correct. So if we do that, array.push item. Let's leave it like that for now. Prepend. How many arguments we get on prepend? 2. The same thing, right? Array and item. Item. Same. How do we add an element at the beginning of the array? Correct. Unshift. Unshift. Array.unshift item. Yeah. Delete first. Delete first. We have just one argument, right? Which is the array. I think it's important if you call it array or list, whatever, but be consistent. Don't call it here now list, because that will feel weird. You are creating a utility library, so keep consistency in your APIs. Array, and then what? How do we delete the first element of an array? Shift, correct. Makes sense, right? If unshift adds an element at the beginning, shift deletes at the beginning, right? Array dot shift. Any argument? No, we just want to delete the first element. And finally, delete last. How we do that? Pop. Yeah. Correct. Pop removes the last element of the array.
I couldn't use pop. I don't know why.
You couldn't use pop. All right? Let's see if we can, right? Cool. Will this work or not? No. Almost. Let's see what happened. Ooh, not almost. It's massive failure, right? If you pay attention, look. What? Append returns free? Prepend returns free? What? Donald? What? What's that?
The return. You have to put the return at the end.
Yes.
Return array dot push.
Yeah, remember that coding style clearly belongs to classic 90s JavaScript. Yeah? And the majority of the community agrees that today this kind of coding style is a bit dodgy, right? However, it's part of the standard, right? Once JavaScript agrees on something, it will stay like that forever for retrocompatibility purposes. What happens if with the new version of JavaScript, ES 2019, that will be available in July probably, what happens if they say, no, now push will add an element instead of at the end, at the beginning. It will break lots of commercial applications, right? Millions of applications will be probably affected. Because of that, once they agree on something, if it's, doesn't matter if it's right or wrong, it will stay like that forever. To me, this is a good example where array.push has a dodgy API. What array.push returns? No. Correct. The length of the array after pushing the element. That's why returns 3, right? Why is that any useful? That's weird. Anyway, so that's a problem that affects to the majority of the methods, right? When we use push, shift, and save pop, look at what happened with shift. With shift, it returns the element that has been deleted. Same with pop, right? Pop returns the element that has been deleted. That means that we have to, first of all, do the action and then return the array. Yeah, same thing all the time. Do the action and then return the array. Do the action and then return the array. Do the action and then return the array. Yeah? So, regardless of whether that works or not, let's see if it works. Almost. Yeah? We got lots of greens except one. We'll see what happened with that particular corner case. But yes, one thing that you should start considering. So, have you ever heard about pure and impure functions? Probably not, right? We'll do a workshop towards the end of the bootcamp. So, generally speaking, functions should be pure. A pure function means the function receives something, and then it should return something else. But it shouldn't modify the data. Here, we are modifying the data. So, someone is invoking our append function with an array of 2 elements, and afterwards, the invoker has an array of 3 elements. What happened? Yeah? Like, you have a PlayStation with 3 games, you give it to someone, and then after 2 weeks, you get the PlayStation back with 2 games. What happened? Why did my number of games have been modified? The same thing. JavaScript functions should be, generally speaking, pure. We'll learn what that implies and how to avoid impure behaviors like this one. But for now, that's okay. So now, back to the question itself. Ooh. That behavior is a bit tricky. On top, or maybe at the bottom, somewhere, we have append. Yeah, the first case, we have an array of 2 elements, and we want to add a new string. It works fine with push. However, look at what happened. If we got Donald and Kim and we push an empty array, we are returning Donald, Kim, an empty array, which makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. However, the test is expecting just to do nothing. How do we do that? Spread operator. Fair enough. We can use the spread operator, which we haven't officially started to learn yet. We can also have an if-else, right? If item dot length. Yeah. Let's see if it works like that. If item dot length, then add it. Yeah. Let's see if it makes sense. It does make sense. You see? So if my item has any length, do you know where length, in which type of data length works with? Numbers? No, not numbers. Arrays and strings, correct. Iterables, yes, correct. Iterables. So, not iterables, enumerables, which we'll learn what that means. What's the question, Beliefs?
Yes, so JavaScript,
yeah.
As far as I understand, the best practice is treated that as a function language,
yeah.
not object-oriented.
Correct.
Because, like, I don't know, push wherever, it mutates, so that's object-oriented.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of multi-paradigm.
Yeah, it is multi-paradigm, yeah. And now we got classes, which is making everything much worse, right?
And later.
Okay, cool. So it works like that, right? I'll give you a different approach. Does anyone know how to solve the problem without, I'll show you, in one line, without using the spread operator, without using any if-else, and without mutating the array? No? No, I don't want to use a spread. I want to keep it even simpler. No. No. There is another method. Concat. Perfect. Concat is the way the JavaScript community said push is not great, right? Because concat is clever for two reasons. First of all, if what you are trying to concat is empty, it won't be added. And then, that's reason number one. Reason number two is it returns the new array. Yeah? So you can do it in one line. And reason number three is it doesn't modify the original array. So now our function is pure. Concat doesn't change the array, right? That's why it's much better. Yeah. The only reason why we should be careful with concat is performance, because it's way more powerful. We talked about that last week, right? But apart from that, still works, and now the solution is sexier. Yeah. Cool. Any question about that? No. Let's have a look to the
I used another method.
Okay.
I went online.
We'll have a look in a second. Look, starting from intermediate, on beginner, generally speaking, the solutions are very similar, right? Because, you know, it's one line, two. On intermediate, you'll start looking at differences. That's why intermediate, to me, is so interesting. You can see so many different styles, and I'm not even talking about expert, which is something crazy. So, what we got here? So, Nico said, if the length of the array is 0, return it. Else add it and then return it. Yeah?
Yeah, it's a bit convoluted, but it's because I think I did try concat, but then another one wasn't giving me the right result.
Just note something. Please, when you use if else, remember to add curly brackets. If something, curly brackets, else, curly brackets.
Even if it's one line?
Even if it's one line, yes. Because one day you'll add 2 lines, and if you don't have the curly brackets, you may forget. Yeah? So it's a good practice. Some other good practices, please add always curly brackets. Yeah? Cool. For Davide, oh look, ooh. So he's checking. Do I got an array? If I have an array, then use the spread operator to, we'll obviously do a workshop about this. Is one of the most powerful and well implemented features of modern JavaScript. The spread, not the spread, the rest operator, right? So we'll talk about it. Cool, sounds good. And what else? It's concat. Obviously you can see both Nico and Davide with concat, one line, right? Cool. Walter, look, he did it. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of the variable naming conventions. Why array 2? Why are you assuming the second argument is an array? It's not necessarily an array. Boris is not an array. Yeah? So don't call it array if it's not necessarily an array. Right? Cool. And for Lucia, people, so it's the array, and then if the new element is not an empty string, push it. Yeah, that's the thing is, that's wrong. You know why that's wrong?
Because empty string is not an array.
Correct. So she's doing something wrong, and because of that is working. Look, do you remember the triple equal, equal? Yeah. So that's the equivalent of double equal, right? The strict mode is exclamation mark equal. Yeah? Because she's not using a strict comparison. Technically speaking, an empty array is the same as an empty string with double equals. That's why she gets an empty array, the element is not added. It's complicated, right? It's hard to read.
And the pop, I use for the stuff because pop was not working, I don't know why.
Pop wasn't working.
No.
Whoa.
And then I slice.
Yeah. That That's again. That's look.
Yeah, I don't know. I just was checking slides yesterday and today. Okay, I can review the slides. Maybe.
Does anyone know why this works? What's array.length? What's that?
Why is that work?
Maybe the name of the array is the first.
No. What that returns?
Undefined.
Undefined, correct. It's like putting array.Brexit or array.
Nico.
Yeah. Nico.
Not considered.
Which is anything, yeah.
It's not anything random that doesn't exist, yeah? Because it doesn't exist, it returns undefined. And array.slice, if it receives undefined, is the equivalent to 0.
Yeah.
That's why it works, right?
I keep trying.
You know
My
She will never be fine.
You know when you go to all-you-can-eat restaurant, at the end you are like struggling to eat the last piece of meat, and that's the same thing, right? That's the last piece of meat on a... Yep.
Actually, this is, I mean, in a sense, it's beautiful. Because if she puts it correctly,
Yeah.
it will have failed.
Yeah. Cool. Yes, it's interesting to review the codes because of this sort of reason, right? And for Bilius, yeah, interesting for Bilius, he used concat and he used this spread operator that is essentially, putting all the elements of the array and then putting the element first, which is an interesting approach, definitely. Cool. Yep.
So let's say if I put directly okay in the brackets,
Yep.
instead of which one is better, faster?
Concat or the spread operator?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. What's more performant? JavaScript performance, concat, yeah, versus spread operator. I don't know, but this is something that we can hopefully get. Run test, previous results. Let's see if there is a way to check the results. So here we're measuring against push and also concat. Okay, that sounds good. You see, guys, this kind of performance, you can simulate. Yeah, it's checking everything. It's checking concat, push, spread, and spread polyfill. Yeah. So we'll see in a second the performance of playing with 200,000 elements. Look, these numbers are really good. So concat is clearly very slow, yeah? This is the number of operations that manage to complete in a given period of time. Push is clearly, this is something we already knew, right? You can see push is like 9 times faster than concat. Then we got spread. Look, this is interesting.
So spread is half.
It's half, yeah. It's something in between, more or less, right?
10 times.
Looks like it's, yeah.
Roughly 10.
Yeah, it's something in between of push and concat. It's interesting. Cool. So, yeah. I think that's it regarding the first question. Anything else, guys, I miss? No? Cool. Question number 2. Question number 2. Interesting. Again, about arrays. But now the main difference is we want to add or remove multiple. Yeah? And also we want to add or remove multiple in a particular position. Not at the beginning necessarily, not at the end, somewhere in between. So, how many arguments? Let's focus on the add multiple one. How many arguments do we receive? 3. Which ones? Array, item, and position. I like that. Array, item, and position. So, in JavaScript, you can add the item on a particular position using splice. Yeah? We'll do a workshop about slice versus splice. But hope starts sounding familiar. So splice says, okay, take that array and then do something. It receives few arguments. The first one is the position you want to play with. The index, actually. Yeah? Let me rename it to index. And now, the second element of a splice, which is a bit weird, is how many elements do you want to delete? How many elements do we want to delete? 0. We don't want to delete anything. And the last argument is how many elements do we want to add? Right? Not how many. Which element or elements do we want to add? The item. Yeah? If we do that, because a splice mutates the array, remember to return the array.
Wait, splice mutates.
Yes.
It doesn't copy.
No. No. It mutates the array. So that means that if we receive an array of 2 elements, after invoking the function, our original array will have 3 elements. Again, not ideal, but for now it's okay. Cool. Any question about add multiple?
No, it's just interesting that how good it is to use, I think, the names, the array, item, position. Because once I used to use splice with like A, B, and C.
Yeah, no, that does.
I got completely
Of course.
confused.
Yeah.
So no, it's a very good.
Yes. Semantics, right?
Yeah.
Cool. And remove multiple. 3 arguments, right? 3 arguments means the first one is the array. The second one is from which position do you want to delete, and the last element is up to which index you want to delete, something like that. Let's have a look to the last example. In here, we want to delete starting from index 1. Here, we want to delete this one. And we want to delete also onto index 2. So this one and that one, yeah? Something like that. So, let's have a look. Array, then from index to index, yeah? Essentially, the boundaries, how many elements we want to delete. So, again, using a splice, array dot splice. Yes. So, what's the first argument? From index, correct. And what's the second argument? To index, correct. Yeah. I would say that this is, I'm thinking, because I don't use a splice very often, but I'm thinking that instead of to index, there should be something like how many. It's not actually the last index, it's how many elements do you want to delete starting from that index. Yeah? So here is, starting from index 1, here, I want to delete 2 elements, 1 and 2. On the previous one, we say, starting from index 0, here, I want to delete 2 elements. That's why you got an empty array back. Yeah? That's why I think calling it to index is not necessarily accurate. You see the differences. Yeah? We'll do a workshop to explain in detail splice and slice. But for now, let's just see if it works. Will it work or not? Remove multiple. Correct. Return array. Yeah? So let's see if that works. It does work. You see? It does work. Remember, splice receives at least 2 elements. The index, where do we want to start dealing with the array, and then how many elements we want to delete. If you want to add a new element, you don't want to delete any of them, right? And then we can pass more arguments that are the new elements of the array. Let me quickly check what you did here. So, yeah, the same thing. Just talking about semantics. So, Nicola, if you said items, it looks like here you have a list of items, but this is not, it's just an index, a number, right? For Davide, you got del, but what del is, right? Yeah. But is that a number? Is that a boolean? Delete true or false? Yeah.
Maybe delicatesse.
Yeah, deleted it. Yes. It's script injection, right? And for Walter, that's even worse, right? I and I2. I have no idea what I and I2 means. So please, guys, semantics, readability. Remember, every software company has at least 2 developers, you and you after 6 months. So even if you are working by yourself, remember that you won't remember what I2 means at the end of the year, right? Cool. So because we got 5 minutes, hopefully we got time for the last question. Is a string part of a sentence? We start talking about regular expressions. The majority of the developers hate regular expressions. Yeah. But a small person, they love them. If you love them, you are lucky, because companies really appreciate developers with regex skills. We'll be talking about them. Even though regex can go crazy, especially if you search on Stack Overflow, which I'm going to do once we got the time out, how to validate an email using regex. For some cases, like finding, replacing, they are very convenient, very powerful. Cool. So, we got the regex expression already prepared. So the way this works is, first of all, arguments. How many arguments do we receive, guys?
2.
2. Tell me.
We receive a
Sentence. And pattern, token, string. Exist token. Look, the function is exist token. Let's call it token, yeah? For, consistency reasons. So now, with regex, first of all here, we pass the token. So this is what we want to search, find, test, evaluate, whatever. And then we can return, correct, test. What we put inside? The sentence, correct. So we are checking if that token exists in that sentence.
To make it work, we can apply functions.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a second, Bilius. Will this work, guys, or not?
Not complete.
No. What happened? Let's see. Let's run it. You're right. You're right. The last 2 tests do work, right? False and true. So we're pretty confident it will work forever. However, in the first one, it doesn't work because the case is different. You see? Correct. How do we tell the regex, please ignore the case? Comma. Correct. I. Yeah? You will see there are different tokens. We also got G. G means search all the instances, because we are scared about one, we don't need it at all. So if we evaluate it, yeah, it's all good. It works, and no elegance issues found. Because we are out of time, we are going to leave it here. Let's just check what you did. Pretty much the same thing for Nico, for Davide, and Bilius. Interesting. The problem with, can anyone see? It's all good. No, it's all good. So he's just transforming everything to lowercase, right?
I didn't care too much.
Yeah.
So I knew what were all like, IG, what else? Like you have you can choose
Yeah.
numbers, non-numbers.
Yeah, I hope you agree, Bilius, that it's just simpler, right?
No, they are much more beautiful.
Say it again?
Like using I letter,
Yeah.
I or like G letter,
Yeah.
you have to match multiple.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool.
it's better.
Okay, thank you. And the same thing for Walter. Right, so because this is going to be submitted now, Let me show you something. So JavaScript regex. Not regex, sorry. JavaScript, look at the question, validate email. How to validate an email address in JavaScript? Yeah, straight away. Look at how many votes that question has. I think on every single project we always have to validate emails. Look at the answers. Look at that. Yeah? Do you know now why you get a penalty when you copy and paste code from the internet?
I know.
I'm not against the beautifulness of this algorithm. But what happens if there is a bug? If something doesn't work fine here? We are unable to maintain it because we don't know what's going on. Yeah? So the code should be a white box, not a black box. There is a black box. And if we scroll further, I think someone even proposed something more complicated. I don't mind. Yeah? To me, I particularly find this the best one.
But this stuff is people who type it, or is like
Someone has typed that, yeah? Unless it's Google AI. Someone has typed all these things. That may not be perfect, but to me, it's a pragmatic approach. I prefer to have something 99% perfect, but in which I have full control, than something 100% perfect that, yeah, but I don't know what's that.
Right? So this probably doesn't include as many cases,
Yeah, but
still it works.
Yeah, correct.
And the other one would have every single
Yeah. Cool. Anything else, guys? Before you leave, I would like to show you something. You can see how weird sometimes JavaScript is. So I'm going to stop recording.